Welcome to Pop Culture on the Apricot Tree, where we talk about gospel insights through great stories and help you find entertainment that is both true and beautiful. Pop Culture on the Apricot Tree is part of the Public Square Media network of podcasts that seek to bring an LDS perspective into the public square. I'm Liz Busby, here with my co-host Carl Cranney. This short, we're covering The Wild Robot, a 2024 DreamWorks movie based on the children's book by Peter Brown. This film tells the story of a robot stranded on a deserted island who accidentally becomes the parent to a baby goose. I am a big fan of the book and went to see this movie in the theater with my kids. Carl, I believe you just recently saw it for the first time.
Yeah, I finished it today, actually. Also with my kids. They had seen it before, though.
My daughter's reaction to this movie, she does not like stressful movies in any way, and this movie has some pretty stressful moments, but she loved it. She was super into it. Afterwards in the theater, she turned to me and said, "This show made me feel so sad, but in a happy way." And I think that's like the overall tone of the movie is very bittersweet, and I like that they managed to pull that off in a children's movie. That's all about parenting. What were your thoughts about this movie?
So, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure that I like this one as much as the other people didn't. And that may be for idiosyncratic reasons. In particular, the main storyline, I should say, about the robot, Roz, raising the gosling so that it can grow up and become its own person. I thought that was done really well. All the kumbaya stuff with the animals, so all the animals are now going to make nice. No, the bear's got to eat some people occasionally or it's going to starve to death, right? Like, that's a thing. It's kind of like the end of WALL-E, where all the humans are now these people think you can plant pizzas in the ground and they're going to grow into pizza plants. Like, these guys are going to get back to Earth and they're just all going to starve to death, having lived for generations on this ship with all their needs met. So there was a little bit of weird suspension of disbelief stuff for me at the end. I recognize it's a children's movie, but the parenting stuff, I think, was really well done and tugged on my heartstrings in all the right ways. And I don't even have kids who are out of the house yet. Like, my oldest is 9. So we're still in the helping you learn to swim and fly phase of the plot line. We haven't even gotten to the now you must leave the island and go be where you're supposed to be and go find yourself out in the real world portion yet. So those are my sort of overall thoughts.
Right now, as I was rewatching the movie, I'm also listening to Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. And I listened today to the chapter which is about safetyism, right? And how we've eliminated all of this independence for kids. And this movie is very much kind of a counter message to that like, we have to let kids do things that are unsafe, and like being a parent is not safe. None of this is safe, and it's not supposed to be safe. That's how we grow. It is dangerous. It causes problems. It's not going to leave you looking the same way you were before. And that's the point of parenting and of raising a child, is that they have to go out and do things that are hard and that are dangerous, and they're going to get hurt. And that's how we grow. So I like that it's very much like parenting is being part of nature.
And I don't think since The Incredibles there has been a show that really embraced the true nature of parenting in letting your kids grow up and become their own person. And there comes a point where you just have to let go of them. And so I appreciated that. It reminded me a lot of the reasons I'm happy that I have moved to Utah, because Utah is explicitly a free-range parent state. And where I was in Maryland, like the next county over, they literally arrested some parents at one point for letting their kids walk home from the park. So yeah, I'm glad that I'm here. I can let my kids ride their bikes to school. And I mentioned this to a friend of mine. He asked, could my son come with them to school? So they have a group going to school together. And I was like, yeah, I'm happy to do that. And then at one point I was driving with my kids and they're like, oh, there's what's his face's house. And I was like, wait, why does the kid need to walk to school with you? He lives half a block from the school.
This is totally safe in your random safe neighborhood in Springville.
Right? Absolutely. You could see the church from your house, and the church is literally next door to the school. So Anyway, I hope that poor parent doesn't listen to this podcast, because I love that kid and my kids like him and it's fun.
I mean, this shouldn't become a parenting war stories podcast, but
too late.
When we were in Seattle and we lived less than a mile from the school, there's a dedicated trail on the side of the road, far from the where the cars are driving, and we had to get the district lawyer to draw up a waiver to allow our kids to ride their bikes to school because no one had ever asked for this before and they did not know what to do.
Oh
It
my
was
gosh.
absolutely bonkers. I remember walking to school in kindergarten by myself.
Right?
Like, this was totally normal a generation ago, and it's just not anymore, which is crazy. And I'd totally buy Jonathan Haidt's argument that this is really, really bad for our children. So,
Or Lenore Skenazy, if you've read Free Range Kids,
yes,
right?
she's amazing as well.
Yeah. When I was living with my parents while we were house hunting, my kids, I was like, we're going to let them walk to school. It was actually further then than we are from our school now in Springville. And Susan and my mom were both like, really? You want to do that? And I looked at my mom, I'm like, you let my little sister walk to school, that school from this house.
It's like, what is different?
Nothing. Anyway, it's just so interesting how that's become such part of the culture. And that's one of the reasons why I like that plot line in this movie is it's like, well, the goose can either stay here on the island for the rest of its life and never actually be a goose, or you have to teach it these skills and let it go and hope it survives a migration as a runt. Those are your options. And the robot wisely chooses. Well, I mean, I think she gets ordered to by the fox, right? That's the plot line. Oh, I have a task now because someone said, your task is to take the gosling and turn it into a full-grown goose. And then Roz does it.
But there's no safe way for him to learn to fly and to swim, right? They're like, is there any other way? No, there's no other way. You have to have danger in order to learn things.
And this is not even something we do as parents of the human species, like flying. You just gotta fly. There's a certain point where if you're teaching your kids swimming lessons, they can start swimming in the shallow end, whatever else. But like flying, there's just air. Like that's it. You just gotta do it. The birds learn most of the time by jumping out of the nest. It's like, there you go, baby. You go jump, or you can stay in the nest for the rest of your life.
So I really like that part. The part that I was less enthusiastic about the parenting is I thought they hit a little hard on the idea that parenting is a crushing obligation and kind of painful and restrictive to the parents, right? They play this mother possum and her 8 babies for laughs, like, oh, one of them died. Oh, darn. I'm so sad about that. Like, these are a huge burden. Thank goodness one of them is gone. And then, oh, no, they're not dead. Oh, yay. Like, this kind of like, parenting kind of sucks and it kind of ruins your life. I didn't like those notes in the early movie. Like, it was a little bit hard for me because that was the predominant view of parenting, right? That it is a burden, it ruins your life, it makes everything impossible. And we never talk in our society about the rewards you get from parenting and all the good parts, which I would like, they are more than the bad parts, but we don't talk about them. We only talk about crushing obligation.
Right. That, to me, was an interesting little moment because I was watching this with my kids, but I was like, did they just smoke one of the possum babies? Like, is he,
right?
Like, what just happened? And my kids are like, oh, Dad. I'm like, okay, so clearly this thing is going to show back up again in 60 seconds. But what were your reactions the first time you watched this, kids?
It was rather shocking, right? You're like, are they really going to just kill babies? Because they are playing on a little bit of that, like, nature red in tooth and claw, right? The fox is like, things eat other things. That's just how it works. So you're like, are we really going to go there with parenting?
Maybe that's why I didn't enjoy the ending where all the animals end up making peace with each other, because they started off in this is the way the world actually is sort of situation with these things, with the possum mother. But even then, it starts with the mother being like, oh, these kids. But by the end, even that is shown to be that the mother is enjoying it. The kids are coming along. They become part of this community of animals that is now rallying around this weird robot who has shown up and change the whole dynamic of their entire ecosystem by telling them all to be nice to each other. So there was a little bit of that. That could have been a better developed subplot. But there's also the implication that the possum is like, oh, wait, was that Charlie? No, he was my last litter. Also acknowledging that parenting might be different for different species. Like, we don't get our parenting ethics from, alligators or whatever. But just because it happens in nature does not mean humans need to do it.
Fair enough. They do show it being a little different between them. It is kind of weird that all the animals do get together at the end and form this like utopian community and not talk about where the food sources are coming from. But I did like that it is Roz who brings them all together, because there's this implication that parenting has an impact beyond just your family, right?
Oh, yes.
That society is founded on the family and on parents. And even though, like, she's literally an empty nester, like, her goose has literally flown out of the nest and is gone. But because she was a parent, she is a force for good in the world and is able to bring this community together. And it's because of parenting, because of what that did to her and changed her.
I like that. I also like that it shows Bright Bill not just literally leaving the nest and growing up, but becoming like a mover and shaker in the world. He becomes the leader of these geese because of some circumstances that only he can uniquely navigate. And I find that interesting because I had a friend who said recently that, like, the most countercultural thing you can do is to raise good children. And that's how you change the world. And part of me wanted to say, no, that's only half of it, because the children then have to go change the world. And you were once somebody's child, so you need to also be engaged in changing the world, right? Like, it's not just a pyramid scheme where you raise kids whose only job is to raise good kids, whose only job is to raise good kids. We raise good kids because we want them to go out and be productive members of society and serve the kingdom and do things other than just be parents. And I thought this movie did a good job of portraying that as well. Not only does he leave the nest, he becomes a fully adult person in the society in his own right, with all the benefits that brings. And I thought that was a really good way of portraying what we hope our children do as they grow up and move on. It's not just that they need to have kids, although that is the most important thing you'll ever do. It is also that we should be servants and help our communities and be engaged in the local school board. And I don't know, whatever it is in your life. And Bright Bill absolutely does that. And so I really dug that. Maybe it would have been nice to see some of the possum kids grow up too, but Bright Bill seemed to be the only one that ages. Bright Bill and Roz, the only two that change over the course of the movie.
But I did like that we could see her changing. And in the beginning, she talks about how, like, oh, I'm not in the same shape as I was before. Like, all my parts are malfunctioning, and it's like an annoyance that, like, I recognize very much as a mother, right? Your body absolutely changes, and it's different than it was before. But it reminded me of this quote from President Hinckley's wife, from Marjorie Hinckley, where she says, "I don't want to drive up to the pearly gates in a shiny sports car, wearing beautifully tailored clothes, my hair expertly coiffed, right? I want to drive up in a station wagon that has mud on the wheels from taking the kids to scout camp. I want there to be a little dirt under my fingernails from helping weed someone's garden. I want the Lord to know I was really here and that I really lived," right? So this sense that, like, yeah, you have to give up a lot of your task-oriented mindset and your accomplishment-oriented mindset being a parent, because it's not something that can be done. It's not a easy, like, start-to-finish task. And it changes you and makes things happen in ways you didn't expect. But that those changes are evidence that you love and are loved. And that's what God wants for us.
It is why he wants us to be parents, because that is the thing that most helps us approximate what he does. His work and his glory is to bring it past the immortality, eternal life of man. Our work as parents now is to help him in that, especially with regard to our children, these beings with whom you will have this relationship from now into the eternities. It will never stop. If theologically you both make it to the celestial kingdom and you are both now equals and joint heirs with Christ, with all that entails, but you will always be Molly's mom and I will always be Eliza's father. And that is a relationship that will never change. Even if we become co-heirs with Christ and become lowercase g gods, as it says in section 132 especially, God will still always be our father, and we will always have that unique relationship with him, even if we get to the point where we are, at least as I understand it, literally peers. So sending us here to gain our bodies, to gain experience, the best way to gain experience is by being a parent, because that is the thing that most approximate what God himself does.
I love it. Love it. All right. Anything else we wanted to cover or keep it?
I think we're good. It's a great movie about parenting because it gets it right in so many ways. Just back to that last point, like the way Roz looks at the end, right? She is there with the deserted island equivalent of a station wagon and peanut butter smudges and, you know, whatever else that Sister Higley's talking about, like where she is now scarred and bruised and battered and has moss growing on and has to replace one of her legs. Parenting changes you, man, and she's better for it. Even the heartless corporation that's sending the robots to pick her up, it's like, we want your data because you have got some interesting experiences now. And I can't imagine you get back to heaven and God's like, I mean, I know I'm all knowing, but tell me your experiences and he will totally be interested in that. And so will Mother in Heaven. And, you know, and so, yeah, parenting changes you all for the better.
Yeah, I love it. I also think it's interesting that often in movies about families nowadays, it's about the parents caving to the kids who see the world correctly. And in this movie, I feel like they got that rhythm a little better, where it's like Roz is kept from Bright Bill that she accidentally killed his parents, right? And that was a mistake, and she acknowledges her mistake, and he's mad at her, but he eventually has to come to forgive her for being human. And I think part of the power of this movie is that it really got to, like, my daughter and all of my kids, what it is like to be a parent, which is so hard to see from childhood, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's hard to see your parents as people who make mistakes, but who are trying their best and, like, who are getting something out of the relationship too.
When my dad, hi Dad, I know you listen to the podcast. When my dad says that he was glad that I'm so well-tempered in various ways because I was the one upon whom he made all the first mistakes. Since I'm the oldest in my family, I did not understand what he was saying until I started making mistakes with my oldest. And I'm like, oh, this is just a cycle that we have to perpetuate as ignorant humans. What's the line? This book teaches me everything I need to know about parenting. I'm like, really? Does it tell you what to do when your kid shoves peas up their nose? Like, come on. You're just going to have to jump in and swim as a parent, just like the Gosling has to become a goose. That's a good point, actually. I really like you that this shows what being a parent is actually like in a way that is understandable for children. And maybe I'll point it out to my kids and maybe they could give me some more grace with the mistakes I make on them, which they're more than happy to point out, of course.
Of course they are. Okay, should we do some lightning ratings really quick? For content, clean versus objectionable material, celestial, terrestrial, telestial, outer darkness. There are some intense moments in this movie, but even my most sensitive child is able to handle it.
Probably the most violent thing that happens is, well, I mean, the robots show up, they start shooting everything with lasers and set the forest on fire. But probably the most violent part is the accident where she ends up killing, smashing all the other eggs and killing the parents. And so because that becomes a plot point, or forgiveness, and I'm trying to rectify this mistake and reconciliation between the two.
It's tastefully handled. It's not like shockingly handled. And it's very emotionally intense. All of these things, even the forest fire is just very intense for a kid's movie, but not like objectionable. Okay, artistic merit. I think it's a fantastic movie. DreamWorks is hit or miss with me, but this one is really excellent. It made some changes from the book, which we can talk about some other time. I'm tempted to give it 5 popcorn balls just because I think they do a really good job. I have a few quibbles about some of the parenting stuff, but overall it was a really good portrayal.
If they had just had the animals all sort of being in their own spheres and then being kumbaya at the end, I think that wouldn't have bothered me. Is the fact that they start off talking about like the actual ecosystem in the food chain. And so maybe that's a weird thing to drop it down to 3 popcorn balls. But part of me wants to because it ruined my suspension of disbelief. There are some animals there that need to eat the other animals. And they're just like all living in harmony at the end. I'm like, no, you just shouldn't have brought it up because you can totally do that.
Right. I mean, like Jungle Book does it, right? Like they're all around the watering hole and that's like the truce area.
I mean, what's another good one? Over the Hedge, where I genuinely had to go look up who the voice of the bear was in this one. because it sounded to me so much like the voice of the bear in Over the Hedge. And I was like, did they Nick Nolte to do both of these? No, it turns out it's Luke Skywalker for this one. It's Mark Hamill.
It's always Mark Hamill.
I don't know. Maybe that's weird, but it ruins suspension of disbelief for me. The first 2/3 of the movie to me felt so paint by the numbers that I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to like this movie. It had more heart by the end. I'll give it 4 just because of all the parenting stuff we talked about.
I think that's fair. I mean, it does a really good job of executing on the tropes you expect from, like, robot trying to learn to be human for that first bit. But it executes on them very well. But you're right, it is pretty tropey. Fair enough. We'll settle on 4. Gospel connections, morally edifying messages. I put this one at a 5 just because I had really good conversations with my kids without even thinking about it from this movie, and just talking about like the importance of families and how we really do need each other and we change each other.
I'll give it 4. But again, that's just, and again, long-time listener to the podcast, unless there's an explicit gospel or Christ-centered connection, I don't give it 5. So I'll give it 4 because it absolutely gets parenting right, and parenting is what God does. And so I'll give it 4 apricots for gospel connections, because being a good parent, that is definitely a morally edifying message.
Absolutely. All right. This has been Pop Culture on the Apricot Tree, encouraging you to seek after everything virtuous, lovely, of good report, or praiseworthy. See you next time.